3 whispered words in the darkness shattered everything Anna thought she knew about her marriage and transformed her from a trusting housewife into the CEO of a $1 million consulting empire. What she discovered next would change not just her life, but the lives of thousands of women who heard her story. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The conference room fell silent as Anna Mitchell stepped to the podium, her tailored navy blazer reflecting the stage lights that illuminated the Seattle Convention Center. Before her sat 800 women entrepreneurs, business leaders, and aspiring professionals, their faces turned toward her, with the kind of respectful attention reserved for speakers whose stories had already become legend in business circles. The large screen behind her displayed her introduction in elegant typography. Anna Mitchell, founder and CEO, Phoenix Consulting Group. From betrayal to breakthrough, building success from life's darkest moments. The irony was not lost on her that this moment, representing the pinnacle of her professional achievement, had its origins in the most devastating night of her personal life. Anna adjusted the wireless microphone with steady hands, a far cry from the trembling fingers that had once struggled to dial her sister's phone number at 3 in the morning. The transformation from that broken woman to the confident executive standing before this audience represented a journey that still amazed her, even as she lived it every day. The audience waited with the kind of anticipatory silence that speakers recognize as genuine engagement. These women had come to hear her story not out of curiosity, but out of necessity. Many of them carried their own secrets, their own moments of devastating discovery, their own questions about whether it was possible to rebuild a life after everything familiar had crumbled. Anna took a measured breath and began to speak, her voice carrying clearly across the expansive auditorium. Ladies, 3 years ago, I was living what I thought was the perfect life. Beautiful home in the suburbs, successful husband, 2 wonderful children, and the comfortable certainty that comes from believing you know exactly who you are and where you belong. She paused, allowing the weight of that statement to settle over the audience. What I did not know was that everything I believed about my life, my marriage, and my future was built on a foundation of lies so elaborate that it took a single moment of unconscious honesty to bring it all crashing down. The audience leaned forward almost imperceptibly, that subtle shift speakers learn to recognize as the moment when polite attention transforms into genuine captivation. Anna had learned to read these moments during her journey from desperate housewife to sought-after business consultant, and she understood that the next few minutes would determine whether her message would inspire transformation or simply provide entertainment. That moment came at 2:37 a.m. on a Tuesday in March, when my husband of 12 years began talking in his sleep. 3 words that would destroy my marriage and, ultimately, save my life. Anna's voice carried the weight of lived experience, free from melodrama, but rich with the authenticity that comes from having survived genuine crisis. The women in the audience recognized something in her tone that resonated with their own experiences of betrayal, disappointment, and the terrible moment when comfortable illusions give way to harsh reality. This was not going to be a story about lucky breaks or easy victories, but about the kind of transformation that emerges from the wreckage of everything you thought you could count on. Anna continued, her presentation style polished but personal. What happened next tested everything I thought I knew about my own strength, my capabilities, and my right to create a life on my own terms. The journey from that devastating discovery to this podium required me to confront not just my husband's deception, but my own willingness to accept limitations that others had placed on my potential. She gestured toward the screen behind her, which now displayed a photograph of a modest suburban home, the kind of place where millions of women navigate the daily complexities of family life while their own dreams remain carefully tucked away for someday. This was my world 3 years ago, a world where my identity was completely defined by my relationships to other people: wife, mother, daughter, volunteer coordinator. I had not asked myself who Anna Mitchell was as an individual for so long that I had forgotten the question was even worth considering. The audience recognized the universal truth in her words. Many of them had experienced their own versions of identity subsumption, the gradual process by which personal ambitions and individual identity become secondary to the roles they played in other people's lives. The discovery that would change everything happened in the bedroom I had shared with my husband for over a decade. In the house we had chosen together, surrounded by the life we had built on what I believed was mutual love and respect. Anna's voice remained steady, but her words carried the emotional weight of someone who had learned to transform pain into purpose. She moved slightly away from the podium, her confidence evident in her willingness to abandon the physical barrier between herself and her audience. I want to share this story with you not because betrayal and deception are unique experiences, but because they are unfortunately common ones. More importantly, I want to show you what becomes possible when we refuse to let other people's choices define the boundaries of our own potential. The screen now displayed a timeline graphic, marking key moments in what would become Anna's transformation journey. The clean, professional presentation stood in stark contrast to the chaos and uncertainty that had characterized the actual experience of living through those changes. What you will hear tonight is not a story about revenge or bitterness, though I experienced both of those emotions. It is not a story about lucky breaks or sudden windfalls, though opportunities did eventually emerge. This is a story about recognition, the gradual process of discovering capabilities you never knew you possessed, and finding the courage to act on insights that others might dismiss or overlook. Anna returned to the center of the stage, her presence commanding the kind of attention that comes from authentic expertise earned through genuine struggle. 3 years ago, I was financially dependent, professionally inexperienced, and emotionally devastated. Today, Phoenix Consulting Group generates over $2 million in annual revenue, helping companies identify and develop untapped human potential within their organizations. The numbers landed with impact, not because they were impressive in themselves, but because they represented measurable proof of the transformation she was describing. This was not motivational speaking based on theory or inspiration, but practical wisdom earned through actual achievement. The techniques we use to help Fortune 500 companies recognize hidden talent and unlock organizational potential are the same principles I applied to rebuilding my own life after it was completely dismantled by circumstances beyond my control. Anna's voice carried conviction born of experience rather than optimism. She moved toward the audience, closing the physical distance between herself and the women who had come to hear her message. Every woman in this room possesses capabilities that are not being fully utilized, insights that are not being heard, and potential that is not being recognized. The difference between knowing this intellectually and acting on it practically often comes down to a single moment when circumstances force you to choose between accepting limitations or fighting for possibilities. The silence in the auditorium was complete, the kind of focused attention that indicates genuine engagement with ideas that feel both challenging and achievable. Anna had learned to recognize this response during her journey from desperate housewife to successful entrepreneur, and she understood that her audience was ready to hear the details of how such transformation actually occurs. My moment of choice came at 2:37 a.m. when I heard 3 words that shattered every assumption I had made about my life and my future. But that moment of devastation became the foundation for everything I have accomplished since. Because it forced me to discover who Anna Mitchell actually was when stripped of all the roles and relationships that had previously defined her identity. She paused, allowing the weight of that statement to resonate with women who had their own experiences of identity crisis and forced self-discovery. What I found was someone I had never met before, someone with analytical capabilities I had never developed, problem-solving skills I had never applied, and business instincts I had never trusted. The screen behind her now displayed the Phoenix Consulting Group logo, a stylized phoenix rising from flames, symbolizing the transformation theme that had become central to her personal brand and business philosophy. The company I built from nothing represents not just professional success but proof that devastating setbacks can become launching pads for achievements you never imagined possible. Anna's voice carried the authority of someone who had earned her platform through genuine struggle and measurable results. Tonight, I want to take you through that journey step by step, from the moment of discovery that destroyed my comfortable illusions to the systematic process of building something entirely new from the ground up. She gestured toward the audience, acknowledging their presence and investment in her message. Many of you have experienced your own moments of devastating discovery. Some of you are living through them right now. What I want to show you is that these moments, as painful as they are, can become the catalyst for transformation that would never have occurred under comfortable circumstances. The presentation screen now displayed a series of photographs showing Anna at different stages of her journey, from suburban housewife to business professional to keynote speaker. The visual progression illustrated the dramatic nature of her transformation, while maintaining focus on the systematic process that had made such change possible. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The story I am about to share begins with 3 words whispered in the darkness that revealed a double life so elaborate it had been hidden in plain sight for years. But more importantly, it is the story of what becomes possible when you refuse to let other people's deceptions define the limits of your own potential. Anna returned to the podium, her movements confident and purposeful. By the time I finish tonight, you will understand not just what happened to me, but how the principles that guided my transformation can be applied to whatever challenges or limitations you are currently facing in your own life. She looked out over the audience, making eye contact with women in different sections of the auditorium. The journey from betrayal to breakthrough is not easy, but it is possible. More than that, it is one of the most powerful paths to discovering capabilities and achieving success that you never knew were within your reach. The stage lights dimmed slightly, creating a more intimate atmosphere as Anna prepared to take her audience into the details of her transformation story. Let me take you back to that Tuesday night in March, to the moment when 3 whispered words changed everything and set in motion a series of events that would ultimately lead to this stage, this company, and this message. The silence that followed was filled with anticipation, the kind of engagement that indicates an audience ready to invest emotionally in a story that promises both difficult truths and hopeful possibilities. Anna had learned to recognize this moment during her speaking career, and she knew that the next phase of her presentation would determine whether her message would inspire genuine transformation or simply provide temporary motivation. What I discovered that night was not just my husband's betrayal, but my own capacity for resilience, innovation, and success that had been dormant for years, waiting for circumstances dramatic enough to force their emergence. Anna's voice carried the quiet confidence of someone who had not only survived devastation, but had transformed it into the foundation for unprecedented achievement. The audience was ready to hear how such transformation actually occurs, and Anna was prepared to show them exactly how the worst night of her life had become the beginning of the best chapter of her professional career. 3 years before that keynote speech in Seattle, Anna Mitchell lived in what appeared to be the embodiment of suburban success. Her colonial-style home in Westfield, Connecticut, sat on a meticulously maintained half-acre lot, complete with professional landscaping and a circular driveway that accommodated both her Honda Accord and her husband's BMW sedan. The house itself featured 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and an open-concept kitchen that had been featured in the local Home and Garden magazine 2 years earlier. Every morning at 6:15, Anna would begin her carefully orchestrated routine. She prepared breakfast for her 2 children, Emma and Lucas, ages 10 and 8 respectively, while simultaneously packing their lunches and reviewing their schedules for after-school activities. By 7:30, she had delivered both children to their respective schools, returned home to straighten the house, and begun planning the day's activities that would fill the hours until their return. Her husband, Robert Mitchell, worked as a senior partner at Hartwell & Associates, a prestigious accounting firm based in Hartford. His success provided the family with a comfortable upper-middle-class lifestyle that included annual vacations to destinations like Martha's Vineyard and Aspen, private music lessons for both children, and the security of knowing that college tuition would not present financial hardship when the time came. Anna's daily existence revolved entirely around supporting this lifestyle and the people who comprised her immediate world. She served as room parent for both children's classes, coordinated the annual fundraising auction for the elementary school, and maintained the social calendar that kept the family connected to their community of neighbors and colleagues. Her role was comprehensive and demanding, requiring diplomatic skills, organizational capability, and the ability to anticipate and solve problems before they disrupted the smooth functioning of family life. The identity she had constructed over 12 years of marriage was fundamentally relational. When introduced at social gatherings, she was invariably described as Robert's wife, Emma and Lucas's mother, or the woman who had organized whichever community event was currently being discussed. She had become accustomed to these introductions and no longer noticed how rarely anyone asked about her own interests, opinions, or ambitions. Her educational background included a bachelor's degree in English literature from Connecticut College, where she had graduated with honors and demonstrated particular strength in analytical writing and critical thinking. During college, she had harbored vague ambitions about pursuing graduate school in education, or perhaps working for a nonprofit organization focused on literacy programs. However, these aspirations had been gradually set aside as more immediate priorities took precedence. Robert had been pursuing his MBA when they met during her senior year, and his career trajectory had always seemed more clearly defined and financially promising than any path she might have chosen. When he proposed 6 months after her graduation, the decision to focus on supporting his professional advancement while building a family together had felt practical and romantic simultaneously. The early years of their marriage had been genuinely happy. Robert was attentive and affectionate, frequently expressing appreciation for the ways Anna managed their household and social obligations. He consulted her on important decisions and seemed to value her judgment about everything from real estate purchases to career moves. She felt like a genuine partner in building the life they both wanted. The transition to motherhood had been more challenging than Anna had anticipated. Emma's arrival had required adjustments to every aspect of their routine, and Anna had struggled with the isolation and physical demands of caring for an infant while maintaining her previous responsibilities. Robert had been supportive during this period, taking over household tasks and expressing patience with the disruptions to their normal schedule. When Lucas was born 2 years later, Anna had felt more confident in her maternal capabilities, but increasingly aware of how completely her identity had shifted toward caregiving and household management. The intellectual stimulation she had enjoyed during college seemed like a distant memory, replaced by the immediate and constant demands of child-rearing and domestic administration. Despite these challenges, Anna had found genuine satisfaction in creating a stable and nurturing environment for her family. She took pride in her children's academic achievements, their good behavior in social situations, and the warm atmosphere she had cultivated in their home. Friends and neighbors frequently commented on her organizational skills and her ability to manage complex schedules and multiple responsibilities simultaneously. Her relationship with Robert had evolved into a comfortable partnership based on clearly defined roles and mutual respect for each other's contributions to their shared life. He provided financial security and handled major household decisions involving finances, insurance, and long-term planning. She managed daily operations, childcare coordination, and the social obligations that maintained their position within their community. Anna's days were full and purposeful, though rarely intellectually challenging. She attended PTA meetings where she contributed thoughtful suggestions about curriculum improvements and fundraising strategies. She organized playdates and birthday parties that required detailed planning and diplomatic navigation of various family dynamics. She researched and coordinated family vacations that balanced everyone's interests while staying within budget parameters. Her social circle consisted primarily of other mothers whose children attended the same schools and participated in similar activities. These relationships were warm and supportive, built around shared experiences of parenting challenges and community involvement. Conversations typically focused on children's achievements and struggles, school politics, and the logistics of managing busy family schedules. Anna had maintained friendships with several college classmates, though these relationships had become more distant as their lives had taken different directions. Many of her former classmates had pursued careers in education, nonprofit work, or corporate environments, and Anna sometimes felt self-conscious about her choice to focus exclusively on family responsibilities when these friends shared updates about professional achievements and career advancement. The financial security provided by Robert's success had eliminated many sources of stress that affected other families in their community. Anna did not need to work outside the home, and their budget allowed for conveniences like housekeeping service twice monthly and lawn care during the growing season. This security had enabled her to focus entirely on family and community involvement without the complications that employment would have added to their already complex schedule. However, this same financial dependence had gradually created a dynamic where Anna's contributions to their partnership, while valuable, were not quantifiable in monetary terms. Robert's income was easily measured and directly linked to their standard of living, while Anna's contributions, though essential to their family's functioning, were more difficult to evaluate in concrete terms. Anna had not consciously recognized how completely her sense of self-worth had become tied to other people's satisfaction with her performance in various roles. Her self-esteem rose and fell based on her children's behavior at school events, the success of community projects she organized, and Robert's expressions of appreciation for her management of household responsibilities. She had developed impressive skills in project management, diplomatic communication, financial planning, and problem-solving, but she thought of these capabilities as natural extensions of her domestic responsibilities rather than transferable professional competencies. The idea that her organizational abilities and analytical thinking might have value in business contexts had never seriously occurred to her. The routines and responsibilities that filled Anna's days provided structure and purpose, but they also created a kind of intellectual isolation that she had not fully recognized. Her conversations rarely involved complex problem-solving beyond the scope of family and community issues. Her reading material consisted primarily of parenting magazines, local newspapers, and the occasional novel that she could finish during brief periods of free time. Anna's physical world reflected the comfortable prosperity that Robert's career had made possible. Their home was professionally decorated in warm, traditional colors that created an atmosphere of stability and welcome. The kitchen featured granite countertops and high-end appliances that made meal preparation efficient and enjoyable. The children's bedrooms were furnished with quality pieces that would accommodate their growth and changing interests. The neighborhood where they lived was populated by families with similar backgrounds and circumstances. Most mothers were either full-time homemakers like Anna or worked part-time in flexible positions that accommodated school schedules and family obligations. The community was safe, well-maintained, and provided excellent schools and recreational facilities. Anna's typical week included volunteer commitments that utilized her organizational skills while contributing to causes she cared about. She served on the board of the local animal shelter, where she had developed and implemented a more efficient adoption process that had increased placement rates by 30%. She coordinated the annual book fair at the elementary school, managing logistics that involved dozens of volunteers and thousands of dollars in inventory. These volunteer activities provided Anna with opportunities to exercise leadership skills and tackle complex organizational challenges, though she thought of them as natural extensions of her community involvement, rather than demonstrations of professional capability. The skills she applied to these projects, including strategic planning, team coordination, and performance measurement, were identical to those valued in corporate environments, but she had never made these connections consciously. Anna's marriage to Robert had been built on genuine love and shared values, and their relationship remained affectionate and respectful. They enjoyed each other's company during the limited time they spent together without children, and they functioned effectively as a team in managing family responsibilities. Robert frequently expressed appreciation for Anna's contributions to their family's success and happiness. However, the demands of Robert's career had gradually reduced the time and energy he devoted to their relationship. Business travel had become more frequent, and client entertainment often kept him away from home during evenings and weekends. Anna had accepted these changes as natural consequences of his career advancement and had adjusted family routines to accommodate his increasing professional obligations. The life Anna had built was genuinely satisfying in many ways. She loved her children deeply and took pride in providing them with stability, support, and opportunities for growth and learning. She valued her role in creating a home environment that served as a refuge from external stresses and challenges. She found fulfillment in her community involvement and appreciated the friendships she had developed with neighbors and fellow volunteers. Yet beneath this surface satisfaction, Anna sometimes experienced moments of restlessness that she could not easily explain or justify. During quiet moments after the children were asleep and Robert was working late, she would occasionally wonder about the paths she had not taken and the aspects of herself that had remained unexplored during the years devoted to family building and community involvement. These moments of questioning were brief, and usually dismissed as normal middle-age reflection rather than signals of deeper dissatisfaction or unfulfilled potential. Anna had constructed a life that met her family's needs and aligned with her values, and she felt grateful for the security and comfort that this life provided. What Anna did not realize was that the skills she had developed, the insights she had gained, and the capabilities she had demonstrated during years of managing complex family and community responsibilities represented a foundation for professional success that she had never considered exploring. The analytical thinking, diplomatic communication, and strategic planning that she applied naturally to domestic challenges were exactly the competencies that organizations valued most highly in their employees and consultants. The comfortable routine that structured Anna's days was about to be shattered by a discovery that would force her to confront not only her husband's deception, but also her own untapped potential for independence and achievement that had been dormant for over a decade. The invisible barriers that confined Anna's potential were so seamlessly woven into the fabric of her daily existence that she had long ceased to recognize them as limitations rather than natural circumstances. These constraints operated through multiple interconnected systems that reinforced each other, creating a comprehensive framework that defined not only what Anna did with her time, but more fundamentally, how she understood her own capabilities and worth. The most pervasive limitation was the cultural expectation that defined successful womanhood through the lens of family service and domestic excellence. Within Anna's social circle, professional ambition was viewed with subtle suspicion, particularly when it might conflict with maternal responsibilities or family stability. Women who pursued demanding careers were often subject to whispered criticisms about their priorities, while those who devoted themselves entirely to family life received consistent social validation and support. Anna had internalized these cultural messages so completely that she experienced guilt whenever she found herself intellectually stimulated by challenges outside the domestic sphere. During school board meetings where she contributed strategic insights about budget allocation or curriculum development, she would later minimize her contributions when discussing the meetings with Robert or her friends. The sophisticated analytical thinking she demonstrated in these contexts felt somehow inappropriate or presumptuous, as though she were overstepping boundaries that properly belonged to others with formal credentials or official authority. The financial structure of her marriage created another layer of limitation that influenced every aspect of how Anna understood her options and possibilities. Robert's income provided their family's security and lifestyle, while Anna's contributions, though essential to their functioning, generated no direct monetary value. This economic dynamic meant that any decision Anna made about pursuing interests or opportunities outside the home had to be evaluated primarily in terms of cost rather than potential benefit. When Anna had briefly considered taking a part-time position coordinating volunteer programs for a local nonprofit organization, the conversation with Robert had focused entirely on the practical complications such work would create for their family schedule, and the additional expenses it would generate for childcare and transportation. The possibility that Anna might find the work intellectually fulfilling, or that her skills might have market value beyond their current volunteer applications, was never seriously considered in their decision-making process. This economic dependence extended beyond immediate financial considerations to encompass Anna's long-term security and planning. She had no individual credit history, no retirement savings in her own name, and no professional network that might provide opportunities for income generation if circumstances required it. The comfortable security that Robert's success provided came with the implicit understanding that Anna's role was to support and maintain this system, rather than develop alternatives or backup plans. The social environment in which Anna lived reinforced these limitations through constant comparison and validation of traditional role performance. Conversations at school events, neighborhood gatherings, and community meetings rarely focused on women's individual achievements or professional aspirations. Instead, social status was measured through children's accomplishments, household aesthetics, volunteer contributions, and husband's career advancement. Anna found herself evaluated and evaluated others according to these metrics, without conscious awareness of the constraint system this created. A woman whose children excelled academically was regarded as successful, while one whose children struggled was subtly criticized for insufficient attention or poor prioritization. A woman whose home was featured in local publications received admiration, while one whose domestic arrangements were less polished faced gentle but persistent suggestions for improvement. These social dynamics created pressure to excel within narrowly defined parameters, while discouraging exploration of alternative definitions of success or achievement. Anna had become skilled at presenting herself according to these expectations, but the energy required to maintain this performance left little space for questioning whether these standards aligned with her own interests or potential. The educational and professional systems that might have provided pathways for Anna's intellectual development were structured in ways that effectively excluded women in her circumstances. Graduate programs required full-time commitment that was incompatible with primary childcare responsibilities. Professional development opportunities were typically scheduled during business hours, when Anna was managing household responsibilities or volunteering at school events. Even continuing education programs designed for adult learners assumed availability during evening hours, when Anna was coordinating children's homework, preparing meals, and managing family logistics. The few programs that offered weekend or flexible scheduling were often focused on traditionally female fields, like education or social work, rather than business disciplines that might have provided pathways to higher income opportunities. Anna had never seriously investigated these barriers because the idea of pursuing formal education or professional training felt selfish and impractical given her family obligations. She had accepted the assumption that her opportunity for career development had passed when she chose to focus on family building, and she regarded women who successfully balanced advanced education with family responsibilities as exceptional individuals, rather than examples of achievable possibilities. The technological and informational landscape that surrounded Anna's daily life reinforced her sense of disconnection from professional opportunities and business knowledge. Her internet usage focused primarily on family-related research, community information, and casual social networking. She did not subscribe to business publications, attend professional conferences, or participate in networks that might have exposed her to current trends in organizational development or consulting services. This informational isolation meant that Anna was unaware of the growing demand for exactly the types of skills she had developed through her volunteer work and family management experience. She did not know that organizational consulting was a rapidly expanding field, that companies were increasingly interested in employee development and engagement strategies, or that her combination of analytical thinking and interpersonal skills represented valuable professional competencies. The physical and logistical constraints of Anna's daily routine created additional barriers to exploring possibilities beyond her current circumstances. Her schedule was structured around other people's needs and external obligations, leaving minimal, uninterrupted time for personal reflection or independent planning. Even during brief periods of free time, Anna felt pressure to use these moments for household tasks, family preparation, or volunteer commitments, rather than activities focused on her own development or interests. Transportation arrangements, childcare responsibilities, and household management demands made it practically difficult for Anna to attend events or meetings that might have exposed her to different perspectives or opportunities. The suburban lifestyle that provided her family with safety and comfort also created geographical isolation from urban centers, where professional networking and educational opportunities were concentrated. Anna's relationship with Robert, while loving and supportive within its defined parameters, operated according to assumptions that limited her sense of agency and possibility. Robert genuinely appreciated Anna's contributions to their family's success and frequently expressed gratitude for her management of household and social responsibilities. However, their dynamic had evolved into complementary specialization rather than collaborative partnership. Robert handled all decisions related to finances, insurance, investments, and long-term planning, while Anna managed daily operations and family coordination. This division of labor was efficient and comfortable, but it meant that Anna had no experience with strategic planning, financial analysis, or decision-making that involved significant resources or long-term consequences. She had become skilled at implementing decisions and managing operations, but she rarely participated in the type of high-level thinking that shaped their family's direction and priorities. The communication patterns within Anna's marriage reflected these role definitions. Robert shared information about his work challenges and professional decisions when they affected family logistics, but he did not seek Anna's input on strategic questions or complex problem-solving unless they directly related to household management. Anna had internalized the assumption that her perspectives on business or professional matters were not relevant or valuable, even though her analytical skills and problem-solving capabilities were sophisticated and well-developed. Anna's relationship with her own ambitions and interests had become complicated by years of deferring personal preferences in favor of family priorities. She had become so accustomed to evaluating opportunities primarily in terms of their impact on other people that she had lost touch with her own professional curiosity and intellectual interests. When she experienced moments of excitement about challenging volunteer projects or complex organizational problems, she immediately redirected this energy toward practical implementation rather than exploring what these responses might indicate about her own capabilities and potential. The internal dialogue that accompanied these moments was consistently self-limiting. Anna would recognize her effectiveness in handling complex logistics or strategic planning, but she would attribute these successes to natural maternal instincts or helpful personality traits rather than developed professional competencies. She had learned to dismiss her own insights and achievements as ordinary or inevitable, rather than recognizing them as demonstrations of valuable skills and capabilities. Anna's support network, while emotionally nurturing, consisted entirely of individuals who shared similar circumstances and limitations. Her closest friends were women whose lives were structured around family responsibilities and community involvement, and their conversations naturally reinforced shared assumptions about appropriate priorities and realistic expectations. None of these relationships provided exposure to alternative models of female success or different approaches to balancing personal development with family responsibilities. The absence of mentors or role models who had successfully transitioned from traditional domestic roles to professional achievement meant that Anna had no framework for imagining such possibilities for herself. She was aware of successful businesswomen through media coverage and community recognition, but these individuals seemed to inhabit a completely different world, with advantages and opportunities that were not relevant to her own circumstances. The psychological impact of these interconnected limitation systems was profound and largely unconscious. Anna had developed a sense of herself as someone who was capable within narrowly defined parameters, but who lacked the credentials, experience, or natural abilities required for significant professional achievement. She had accepted the assumption that business success required educational backgrounds, network connections, and personality traits that she did not possess. This internalized limitation extended to Anna's financial expectations and planning. She had never seriously considered the possibility that she might generate significant income through her own efforts, and she had no framework for evaluating her skills in terms of market value or professional potential. Her sense of economic security was entirely dependent on Robert's continued success, and she had never developed contingency plans or alternative strategies that might provide income security independent of her marriage. The time horizon within which Anna evaluated decisions and opportunities had become increasingly short-term and reactive. Her planning focused on managing immediate family needs and seasonal obligations rather than developing long-term strategies for personal growth or professional development. This reactive approach meant that Anna rarely created space for the type of strategic thinking and goal setting that might have revealed possibilities for expanding her role and impact beyond current limitations. The measurement systems that Anna used to evaluate her own success were entirely external and relational. Her sense of achievement was based on other people's satisfaction with her performance, rather than her own sense of growth, learning, or accomplishment. This external validation system meant that Anna rarely engaged in the type of self-assessment that might have revealed her own interests, strengths, and potential for development in directions that were not currently being recognized or valued by others. These limitation systems were so comprehensive and mutually reinforcing that Anna had ceased to recognize them as constraints rather than natural circumstances. The comfortable predictability of her daily life obscured the ways in which her potential was being systematically underutilized, and her options were being unconsciously restricted. Anna had adapted so successfully to these limitations that she experienced them as security rather than confinement, not realizing that circumstances were about to emerge that would force her to confront the gap between her actual capabilities and the narrow role she had learned to accept as sufficient and appropriate. The revelation that would shatter these comfortable limitations was approaching, And with it would come the terrifying but ultimately liberating recognition that Anna possessed capabilities and potential that extended far beyond the boundaries of her current existence. Dr. Elena Vasquez arrived at the Westfield Community Center on a gray October morning, carrying a worn leather briefcase and wearing a simple black blazer that somehow managed to convey both professionalism and approachability. She was scheduled to facilitate a strategic planning workshop for the annual literacy fundraising campaign, a volunteer position that had emerged through her connection to the regional nonprofit network. What Anna did not initially realize was that this unremarkable introduction would mark the beginning of the most transformative relationship of her adult life. Elena's background was both impressive and unconventional in ways that would prove crucial to her ability to recognize Anna's untapped potential. She held a doctorate in organizational psychology from Yale University, but her career path had included unexpected detours that provided her with unusual insight into the challenges faced by women seeking to transition from traditional domestic roles to professional achievement. Her early academic career had been interrupted by a period of single motherhood when her marriage dissolved during her doctoral studies, forcing her to navigate the complex demands of advanced education while managing full responsibility for her young daughter. This experience had given Elena first-hand understanding of the psychological and practical barriers that prevented capable women from recognizing their own professional potential. She had struggled with imposter syndrome during graduate school, questioning whether her analytical capabilities were sufficient for academic success. She had faced financial pressure that made every educational decision a calculated risk with significant consequences for her daughter's security and well-being. Most importantly, she had learned to identify and develop competencies that existed outside traditional academic or professional frameworks. Following completion of her doctorate, Elena had spent 15 years working as an organizational consultant for Fortune 500 companies, specializing in talent development and employee engagement strategies. Her approach was distinguished by her ability to recognize valuable capabilities in individuals who did not fit conventional profiles for advancement. She had developed assessment techniques that identified problem-solving skills, leadership potential, and strategic thinking abilities, regardless of formal educational credentials or traditional career progression. Elena's consulting practice had evolved to focus specifically on helping organizations unlock what she termed hidden human capital, the untapped potential that existed within their existing workforce, but remained unrecognized due to conventional evaluation methods and advancement criteria. Her client companies had achieved remarkable results by promoting individuals whose capabilities had been overlooked by traditional assessment processes, and her methodology had become increasingly sought after as organizations recognized the competitive advantage of maximizing their human resources. However, Elena's most meaningful work occurred through her volunteer involvement with professional development programs for women seeking career transitions. She had developed workshops and mentoring approaches that helped women recognize transferable skills they had acquired through volunteer work, family management, and community involvement. Her success in this area was based on her ability to help women reframe their experiences and accomplishments in ways that revealed their professional relevance and market value. When Elena entered the community center conference room where Anna was arranging materials for the literacy campaign planning session, she immediately noticed details that most people would have overlooked. The agenda Anna had prepared was comprehensive and strategically structured, beginning with data analysis and stakeholder assessment, before moving to goal setting and resource allocation. The supporting materials were organized with color-coded systems that facilitated quick reference and cross-referencing. The room arrangement encouraged collaborative discussion while maintaining focus on presented information. Anna's introduction of the session demonstrated sophisticated facilitation skills that Elena recognized from her corporate consulting experience. Anna presented complex financial data in accessible formats, guided group discussion toward productive outcomes, and managed interpersonal dynamics with diplomatic effectiveness. Most remarkably, Anna accomplished these tasks with natural confidence and competence, apparently unaware that she was demonstrating professional-level capabilities in organizational leadership and strategic planning. During the coffee break, Elena approached Anna with genuine curiosity about her background and experience. Her questions were carefully crafted to explore Anna's skills and accomplishments, without creating defensiveness or self-consciousness about her lack of formal business credentials. Elena had learned through years of consulting experience that many individuals possessed valuable capabilities they had never learned to articulate or value appropriately. Anna's responses revealed exactly the pattern Elena had learned to recognize in high-potential individuals whose talents remained underdeveloped. Anna described her volunteer coordination work in terms of natural helpfulness rather than project management expertise. She characterized her budget analysis and resource allocation decisions as common sense rather than financial planning skills. She dismissed her diplomatic handling of competing stakeholder interests as personality traits rather than sophisticated interpersonal management capabilities. Elena's follow-up questions were designed to help Anna recognize the complexity and sophistication of her accomplishments. When Anna mentioned coordinating a recent school fundraising event that had generated over $50,000 in revenue, Elena asked about the strategic planning process, vendor management systems, volunteer recruitment techniques, and performance measurement approaches that had contributed to this success. Anna's detailed responses revealed systematic thinking and execution capabilities that would have been valuable in any corporate environment. The conversation continued for nearly an hour, during which Elena learned about Anna's educational background, family circumstances, and long-term goals and concerns. What emerged was a profile of someone who possessed sophisticated analytical and leadership capabilities, but had never received feedback or encouragement that helped her understand the professional value of these competencies. Anna had internalized the assumption that her skills were appropriate only for volunteer and domestic applications, despite evidence that they were directly applicable to business challenges and organizational leadership. Elena's assessment of Anna's potential was informed by her extensive experience identifying and developing talent within corporate environments. Anna demonstrated the type of systems thinking that enabled effective strategic planning and resource optimization. Her interpersonal skills reflected emotional intelligence and diplomatic capability that were essential for team leadership and stakeholder management. Her analytical approach to problem-solving revealed the kind of data-driven decision-making that organizations valued most highly in their management personnel. More importantly, Anna's volunteer experience had provided her with exposure to challenges and responsibilities that were identical to those faced by mid-level executives in business environments. She had managed budgets, coordinated teams, developed strategic plans, implemented complex projects, and measured performance outcomes. The primary difference between Anna's experience and that of corporate managers was context and compensation, rather than complexity or sophistication of required capabilities. Elena recognized that Anna's potential was constrained not by lack of ability or experience, but by her framework for understanding and valuing her own accomplishments. Anna had never learned to translate her volunteer and domestic management experience into professional terminology, or to recognize the market value of competencies she had developed through these activities. This translation process was exactly the type of intervention that Elena had used successfully with hundreds of women seeking career transitions. During subsequent conversations over the following weeks, Elena began introducing Anna to concepts and frameworks that helped her understand her experience in professional terms. She shared articles about organizational behavior and strategic planning that connected directly to challenges Anna had faced in her volunteer work. She provided examples of how other women had successfully leveraged similar backgrounds into consulting opportunities and corporate positions. Elena's approach was carefully calibrated to challenge Anna's assumptions without overwhelming her with information or expectations that might create anxiety or resistance. She understood that confidence building was a gradual process that required consistent validation and incremental exposure to new possibilities. Elena had learned through experience that women like Anna often possessed greater capabilities than confidence, and that sustainable transformation required both skill development and internal psychological shifts. The relationship that developed between Elena and Anna was characterized by mutual respect and genuine intellectual engagement. Elena appreciated Anna's quick grasp of complex concepts and her ability to apply theoretical frameworks to practical challenges. Anna valued Elena's recognition of her capabilities and her willingness to invest time in helping Anna understand her own potential. Their conversations provided Anna with intellectual stimulation that had been largely absent from her daily routine for many years. Elena's mentoring style emphasized questioning rather than direction, encouraging Anna to reach her own conclusions about her capabilities and interests rather than accepting external assessment or advice. This approach was based on Elena's understanding that sustainable confidence required internal recognition of competence rather than external validation alone. She wanted Anna to develop the ability to evaluate her own skills and potential accurately, rather than depending on others' opinions about her worth or capabilities. Through carefully structured conversations and strategic reading recommendations, Elena helped Anna understand that the business world was experiencing unprecedented demand for exactly the types of skills she had developed through her volunteer and family management experience. Organizations were increasingly recognizing that traditional hiring criteria often overlooked valuable talent, and consulting firms were expanding their recruitment to include individuals with non-traditional backgrounds who demonstrated relevant competencies through alternative pathways. Elena also introduced Anna to professional networks and continuing education opportunities that were designed specifically for women seeking career transitions. She provided information about certification programs, professional associations, and networking events that could help Anna develop business knowledge while building connections with others who had successfully navigated similar transformational journeys. Most importantly, Elena helped Anna understand that her circumstances were not unique or insurmountable. She shared stories of other women who had successfully transitioned from volunteer leadership to professional consulting, from domestic management to corporate positions, and from traditional homemaking to entrepreneurial ventures. These examples provided Anna with concrete evidence that transformation was possible and practical, rather than theoretical or unrealistic. Elena's influence on Anna's thinking extended beyond career possibilities to encompass fundamental questions about identity, purpose, and personal fulfillment. She encouraged Anna to consider what types of work would provide intellectual challenge and creative satisfaction, what kind of impact she wanted to have through her professional activities, and what balance she desired between personal and professional commitments. These conversations required Anna to engage with aspects of herself that had remained dormant during her years of focus on family and community responsibilities. Elena's questions prompted Anna to reconnect with interests and ambitions that had been set aside during the early years of marriage and motherhood. The process was both exciting and somewhat unsettling, as Anna began to recognize possibilities that would require significant changes to her comfortable and familiar routine. Elena understood that Anna's transformation would ultimately depend on circumstances that provided both motivation and opportunity for change. She could provide frameworks, encouragement, and practical guidance, but Anna would need to experience situations that demonstrated the value of her capabilities and the limitations of her current circumstances. Elena's role was to prepare Anna for these opportunities by helping her develop confidence in her abilities and clarity about her interests and goals. The timing of Elena's entry into Anna's life would prove to be crucial, though neither woman could have anticipated the dramatic circumstances that would soon test everything Elena had helped Anna understand about her own potential. The comfortable stability that had defined Anna's existence was about to be shattered in ways that would force her to apply every insight Elena had shared about recognizing and leveraging hidden capabilities. Elena had provided Anna with new ways of understanding her experience and potential, but the ultimate catalyst for transformation would come from within Anna's own life, in ways that would validate every conversation they had shared about the power of recognizing and acting upon underutilized talents and unrealized possibilities. The transformation in Anna's self-perception began subtly, manifesting first through small shifts in how she approached familiar responsibilities and interpreted her daily experiences. Elena's conversations had planted seeds of recognition that gradually took root, changing not what Anna did but how she understood the significance and complexity of her existing activities. This awakening process unfolded over several months, during which Anna began to notice patterns and capabilities she had previously taken for granted or dismissed as unremarkable. The initial breakthrough occurred during a particularly challenging school board meeting, where budget cuts threatened to eliminate several programs Anna had worked extensively to develop and implement. The district was facing a significant funding shortfall, and administrators were proposing across-the-board reductions that would have eliminated music education, reduced library services, and increased class sizes in ways that Anna immediately recognized would compromise educational quality disproportionately. Rather than simply accepting these proposals as inevitable financial necessities, Anna found herself analyzing the budget documentation with unprecedented scrutiny. She identified line items that seemed disproportionately large compared to their educational impact, questioned allocation formulas that appeared to favor administrative expenses over direct student services, and developed alternative scenarios that could achieve required savings while preserving essential programs. Her preparation for presenting these alternatives required research skills, financial analysis capabilities, and strategic thinking that Anna had never consciously recognized as professional competencies. She spent hours reviewing comparable district budgets, researching grant opportunities, and developing presentation materials that translated complex financial data into accessible formats for community stakeholders. The process was intellectually engaging in ways that Anna had not experienced since her college coursework in literature analysis. When Anna presented her alternative budget proposal to the school board, the response was immediate and overwhelmingly positive. Board members acknowledged that her analysis had identified genuine inefficiencies they had overlooked, and several of her recommendations were adopted immediately. The superintendent requested that Anna serve on a newly formed efficiency task force, charged with conducting similar analysis across all district operations. The recognition Anna received for this contribution was qualitatively different from the appreciation she typically experienced for her volunteer efforts. Rather than being thanked for her helpfulness or dedication, she was praised for her analytical capabilities, strategic insight, and innovative problem-solving approach. Board members used terms like sophisticated analysis and strategic thinking to describe her work, language that Elena had suggested Anna should apply to her own capabilities but which Anna had resisted as excessive or inappropriate. This experience catalyzed a fundamental shift in how Anna understood her own mental processes and capabilities. She began to recognize that the systematic approach she applied to volunteer projects represented strategic planning methodology identical to frameworks used in corporate environments. The diplomatic skills she employed to navigate competing stakeholder interests reflected sophisticated interpersonal management techniques. The project coordination abilities she demonstrated in organizing community events required the same competencies valued in business project management. Anna started documenting her volunteer activities using professional terminology that Elena had introduced during their conversations. Instead of describing herself as someone who helped organize the annual fundraising auctions, she characterized her role as, quote, project manager responsible for vendor coordination, volunteer recruitment, budget oversight, and performance measurement for a complex event generating over $60,000 in revenue. This reframing exercise revealed the substantial scope and complexity of responsibilities she had been managing without recognizing their professional significance. The psychological impact of this reframing process was profound and somewhat unsettling. Anna experienced simultaneous excitement about recognizing her capabilities and frustration about the years during which these competencies had remained unacknowledged and underutilized. She began to question assumptions she had made about her own limitations, and to consider possibilities that had previously seemed unrealistic or inappropriate for someone in her circumstances. Elena encouraged Anna to pursue formal documentation of her skills through professional assessment tools and certification programs designed for individuals seeking career transitions. Anna enrolled in a project management certification course offered through the local community college, expecting to learn new concepts that would expand her existing knowledge base. Instead, she discovered that the course curriculum covered methodologies she had been applying intuitively through her volunteer work for several years. The certification process required Anna to document specific projects she had managed, quantify their outcomes, and analyze the techniques she had employed to achieve successful results. This exercise revealed that Anna had successfully completed projects with complexity and resource requirements comparable to those managed by mid-level corporate executives. Her volunteer experience included budget oversight for programs exceeding $100,000, team coordination involving dozens of participants, and stakeholder management across multiple competing interest groups. Anna's performance in the certification program exceeded her own expectations and validated Elena's assessment of her professional potential. She completed the coursework with distinction, demonstrating mastery of concepts that she had been applying practically without understanding their theoretical frameworks. The certification process provided Anna with professional credentials that translated her experience into language and documentation formats recognized by business environments. Simultaneously, Anna began applying her analytical capabilities to aspects of her family and community life that she had previously managed through routine rather than strategic thinking. She conducted a comprehensive assessment of household budget allocation, identifying opportunities for cost reduction and resource optimization that freed up significant discretionary income. She developed systematic approaches to managing children's academic and extracurricular schedules that reduced stress while improving outcomes for both Emma and Lucas. Most significantly, Anna began analyzing the broader systems and structures within which her family operated, identifying inefficiencies and improvement opportunities that extended beyond their immediate household. She researched alternative approaches to healthcare management, insurance coverage, and educational planning that could provide better outcomes at reduced cost. These analyses required the same type of systematic research, comparative evaluation, and cost-benefit assessment that characterized professional consulting work. Anna's growing confidence in her analytical abilities began affecting her interactions within her marriage and social relationships. During conversations with Robert about financial planning or major household decisions, Anna found herself contributing strategic insights and alternative perspectives, rather than simply implementing decisions that Robert had made independently. Her input was increasingly sophisticated and well-researched, reflecting capabilities that Robert had not previously recognized or sought. The response from Robert and their social circle to Anna's intellectual engagement was mixed and revealing. Robert expressed appreciation for Anna's insights when they aligned with his existing perspectives, but demonstrated discomfort when her analysis challenged his assumptions or suggested alternative approaches he had not considered. Some friends and neighbors responded positively to Anna's increased confidence and capability, while others seemed threatened by changes that disrupted established social dynamics and role expectations. Anna began seeking opportunities to apply her developing professional identity through expanded volunteer commitments that provided greater intellectual challenge and leadership responsibility. She accepted appointment to the Regional Nonprofit Coalition Board, where she contributed strategic planning expertise and organizational development insights. She volunteered to facilitate workshops for other community organizations seeking to improve their operational effectiveness and fundraising capabilities. These expanded roles provided Anna with exposure to organizational challenges and strategic questions that were identical to those faced by professional consultants and corporate executives. She worked with nonprofit leaders to develop mission statements, create strategic plans, implement performance measurement systems, and manage organizational change processes. Her contributions were consistently valued and sought after, providing external validation of capabilities that Anna was learning to recognize and articulate. The intellectual stimulation Anna experienced through these expanded responsibilities was profoundly satisfying in ways that surprised her. She discovered that she possessed natural curiosity about organizational behavior, strategic planning, and performance optimization that had remained dormant during her years of focus on family and domestic management. The complex problem-solving required by these volunteer roles engaged mental capabilities that Anna had not realized she possessed or missed during their period of underutilization. Anna's relationship with Elena evolved during this period from mentoring to collaboration, as Anna's developing confidence and expertise enabled more sophisticated discussions about organizational theory, consulting methodologies, and professional development strategies. Elena introduced Anna to advanced concepts in organizational psychology and strategic planning that Anna was able to grasp quickly and apply effectively to her volunteer work and family management responsibilities. The reading and research that Anna undertook to support her expanded volunteer roles exposed her to business literature and professional development resources that revealed the substantial market demand for exactly the types of capabilities she was developing. She learned about the consulting industry's growth, the increasing recognition of alternative pathway credentials, and the specific areas where organizations were seeking expertise that matched her developing competencies. Anna began attending professional development workshops and networking events designed for individuals considering career transitions or consulting opportunities. These experiences provided her with exposure to successful professionals who had built careers around competencies similar to those Anna was recognizing in herself. The conversations and connections she developed through these activities expanded her understanding of possible professional pathways and provided practical guidance about translating her experience into marketable services. The cumulative effect of these experiences was a fundamental transformation in Anna's self-concept and future orientation. She began to envision possibilities for professional engagement that could provide intellectual satisfaction, financial contribution to her family's security, and meaningful impact through work that utilized her analytical and leadership capabilities. These visions remained largely theoretical, constrained by practical considerations about family responsibilities and the absence of immediate opportunities that aligned with her developing interests and competencies. However, Anna's internal landscape had shifted dramatically from passive acceptance of her current circumstances to active consideration of alternatives that could expand her impact and utilization of capabilities she was learning to value and develop. She had acquired professional vocabulary for describing her experience, formal credentials that documented her competencies, and a network of relationships that could provide guidance and support for future professional endeavors. The confidence Anna was developing through recognition of her capabilities began affecting other aspects of her life in ways that created both excitement and uncertainty. She found herself questioning assumptions about her role within her marriage, her family's decision-making processes, and her own potential for independence and self-direction. These questions remained largely internal, but they represented fundamental shifts in how Anna understood her own agency and possibilities. Elena observed these changes in Anna with satisfaction and some concern, recognizing that Anna's growing awareness of her potential was creating psychological pressure for changes that might be difficult to implement within her current circumstances. Elena understood that true transformation often required external catalysts that provided both motivation and opportunity for individuals to act upon their developing recognition of personal capabilities and potential. Anna's awakening awareness had prepared her for opportunities that did not yet exist within her current life structure. She had developed the confidence, credentials, and network connections that would enable her to respond effectively to circumstances that might require her to apply her capabilities independently. What remained unknown was whether such circumstances would emerge naturally or whether Anna would need to create them intentionally through decisions that could fundamentally alter the comfortable security of her established life patterns. The moment that would forever alter the trajectory of Anna's life arrived not with dramatic fanfare but with the quiet desperation of a woman who had discovered her entire reality was built upon deception. It was Tuesday, March 15th, at exactly 2:37 a.m., when the foundation of everything Anna believed about her marriage, her security, and her future crumbled with 3 words whispered unconsciously in the darkness of her bedroom. Anna had been experiencing difficulty sleeping for several weeks, a restlessness she attributed to the increasing complexity of her volunteer commitments and the intellectual stimulation Elena had brought into her life. She lay awake that night thinking about a consulting proposal she was developing for a regional nonprofit organization, her mind active with strategic planning concepts and implementation timelines that reflected her growing professional confidence and capability. Robert had returned late from what he described as a client dinner in Hartford, a routine occurrence that Anna had long accepted as a normal aspect of his senior partnership responsibilities. He had been working longer hours recently, taking more business trips, and seemed increasingly distant during the limited time they spent together as a family. Anna had attributed these changes to career pressures and the demanding nature of his accounting practice's expansion into new service areas. As Robert settled into deep sleep beside her, Anna continued her mental planning for the next day's activities, which included a project management meeting at the community center and a conference call with Elena about advanced certification opportunities. She had become accustomed to these periods of nocturnal wakefulness, using them for reflection and planning rather than viewing them as problematic insomnia. The words that shattered Anna's world were spoken in a voice thick with sleep but unmistakably tender with affection. "Love you, Cassandra." The name hung in the darkness like a physical presence, foreign and devastating in its intimacy. Anna's body went rigid as the implications of what she had heard penetrated her consciousness. Robert had never mentioned anyone named Cassandra in the context of his work or social relationships. Anna lay motionless for several minutes, questioning whether she had misheard or misinterpreted what Robert had said. Perhaps he had been dreaming about a client or colleague, and the words carried no romantic significance. However, as she replayed the moment in her memory, the tender inflection and emotional warmth in Robert's voice made innocent explanations seem implausible and desperate. The next 20 minutes passed in a state of hyper-aware observation as Anna listened to Robert's continued sleep-talking, hoping for context that might provide less devastating explanations for what she had heard. Instead, the fragments of unconscious conversation that emerged painted an increasingly clear picture of deception that had been carefully hidden from her awareness for an extended period. Robert murmured about dinner reservations at restaurants Anna had never heard of, weekend plans that did not correspond to any activities she knew about, and intimate conversations that clearly involved someone other than his wife. The evidence accumulated relentlessly, each additional revelation adding weight to a conclusion that Anna desperately wanted to avoid but could no longer deny. By dawn, Anna had heard enough unconscious confession to understand that Robert was maintaining a parallel relationship that involved not just physical infidelity, but emotional intimacy and long-term planning that excluded her entirely. The scope of the deception was comprehensive, involving elaborate scheduling arrangements, financial resources she had not known about, and a carefully constructed double life that had apparently been sustained for months or possibly years. Anna's immediate emotional response was a complex mixture of devastating hurt, profound rage, and terrifying uncertainty about everything she had believed about her life and future. The secure foundation upon which she had built her identity as Robert's wife and partner had been revealed as an illusion maintained through systematic deception. The financial security, social status, and comfortable predictability that had defined her existence were suddenly revealed as contingent upon the continuation of lies she had been unconsciously accepting. However, beneath the immediate emotional trauma, Anna experienced a startling moment of clarity that would prove crucial to everything that followed. The betrayal that had shattered her assumptions about her marriage also illuminated the extent to which she had surrendered her independence, agency, and individual identity to maintain a relationship that was fundamentally dishonest. For the first time in years, Anna was forced to consider who she was and what she was capable of achieving independently of her role as Robert's wife. The analytical capabilities that Elena had helped Anna recognize immediately engaged with the practical implications of her discovery. Anna understood that she would need documentation of Robert's financial affairs, legal advice about her rights and options, and strategic planning for protecting her children's interests during what would likely become a contentious divorce process. The project management skills she had developed through volunteer work suddenly became essential for navigating the most important challenge of her adult life. Anna spent the following day in a state of carefully controlled functionality, maintaining normal routines with her children, while beginning the systematic documentation process that would prove crucial for protecting her interests. She photographed financial documents, researched divorce attorneys who specialized in high-asset cases involving business partnerships, and began creating detailed records of family assets and expenses that would be necessary for equitable settlement negotiations. The contrast between her outward composure and internal devastation was remarkable, reflecting emotional regulation capabilities that Anna had not realized she possessed. She managed school pickup, homework supervision, and dinner preparation, while simultaneously conducting research and planning that required sophisticated analytical thinking and strategic decision-making. The crisis had activated competencies that had remained largely dormant during the comfortable years of her marriage. Elena's training in recognizing and developing hidden capabilities proved immediately relevant, as Anna applied systematic problem-solving approaches to the most challenging situation of her adult life. Rather than becoming paralyzed by the emotional trauma of betrayal, Anna found herself energized by the intellectual complexity of the strategic and logistical challenges she faced. The confidence she had been developing through volunteer work and certification programs provided psychological resources that enabled effective action despite overwhelming circumstances. Anna's research into divorce proceedings and asset protection revealed that her lack of independent income and professional credentials could significantly disadvantage her during settlement negotiations. Robert's accounting expertise and established business relationships provided him with advantages that could enable him to conceal assets or manipulate financial documentation in ways that would be difficult for Anna to detect or challenge effectively. However, Anna's developing analytical capabilities enabled her to approach these challenges systematically, rather than becoming overwhelmed by their complexity. She identified specific areas where she needed expert assistance, prioritized immediate actions that would protect her long-term interests, and began developing contingency plans for various scenarios that might emerge during divorce proceedings. The most difficult aspect of Anna's situation was maintaining normal family routines while conducting the investigation and planning necessary to protect her interests. Emma and Lucas were unaware of the crisis unfolding around them, and Anna was determined to preserve their sense of security and normalcy until she could implement plans that would minimize the disruption to their lives. This requirement for discretion and strategic patience tested Anna's emotional regulation and analytical capabilities in ways that revealed remarkable inner strength and intellectual sophistication. She conducted sensitive research during school hours, scheduled confidential consultations with legal and financial advisors during times when her absence would not be noticed, and maintained normal social interactions while processing devastating revelations about the fundamental dishonesty of her marriage. Anna's conversations with Elena during this period became crucial sources of emotional support and strategic guidance. Elena's professional background in organizational psychology provided frameworks for understanding the psychological dynamics of deception and betrayal, while her personal experience with divorce during graduate school offered practical insights about protecting interests and managing transition processes. Most importantly, Elena helped Anna understand that the crisis she was facing, while devastating personally, also represented an unprecedented opportunity for transformation and independence that could reveal capabilities and potential she had never been forced to develop. The comfortable security of her marriage had prevented Anna from discovering what she could achieve when challenged by circumstances that required her to act independently and strategically. Elena encouraged Anna to view the divorce process not just as the dissolution of her marriage, but as the beginning of her independent professional and personal development. The analytical skills, strategic thinking capabilities, and project management competencies that Anna was applying to navigate her current crisis were identical to those valued most highly in consulting and business environments. The financial necessity that would accompany divorce could provide the motivation Anna needed to translate her developing professional capabilities into income-generating activities. The network she had built through volunteer work and professional development programs could provide opportunities for consulting engagements that would enable her to support herself and her children independently of Robert's income. However, the transition from comfortable dependence to independent self-sufficiency would require Anna to confront psychological barriers and practical challenges that extended far beyond the immediate crisis of her marriage. She would need to develop confidence in her ability to generate significant income through her own efforts, navigate business environments that had previously seemed foreign and intimidating, and establish professional credibility despite her lack of traditional corporate experience. Anna's decision to pursue divorce rather than attempting to salvage her marriage through counseling or confrontation reflected both moral clarity about the unacceptability of sustained deception and strategic recognition that her relationship with Robert had become fundamentally incompatible with the independent identity she was developing. The woman who had discovered Robert's betrayal was no longer the dependent housewife who had married him 12 years earlier. The personal growth Anna had experienced through her work with Elena and her expanding volunteer responsibilities had created psychological distance from the traditional domestic role that had defined her marriage. Anna had developed interests, capabilities, and ambitions that required intellectual challenge and professional recognition that her marriage could not accommodate, even if the betrayal had not occurred. The point of no return was not just the moment Anna discovered Robert's infidelity, but the recognition that she had developed into someone who required independence, intellectual stimulation, and professional accomplishment to maintain self-respect and personal fulfillment. The comfortable security of traditional marriage had become inadequate for the person Anna was becoming, regardless of whether that marriage could be repaired or sustained. Anna's preparation for confronting Robert about his betrayal involved the same strategic planning and analytical preparation she had learned to apply to complex volunteer projects. She anticipated his likely responses, prepared documentation that would prevent him from denying or minimizing his deception, and developed clear statements about her requirements for any possible reconciliation attempts. However, Anna understood that confrontation was largely a formality required for closure rather than a genuine negotiation about the future of their marriage. The systematic deception Robert had maintained was incompatible with the kind of partnership Anna now understood she required, and his investment in another relationship indicated that reconciliation was neither possible nor desirable for either of them. The night before Anna planned to confront Robert with her knowledge of his betrayal, she experienced a profound sense of psychological preparation that reflected the transformation she had undergone during the months since Elena had entered her life. The terrified, dependent housewife who might have begged for forgiveness and reconciliation had been replaced by a strategically thinking, analytically capable woman who understood her own worth and potential for independent achievement. Anna's final decision to end her marriage was made not from desperation or emotional reaction, but from recognition that she had outgrown the limitations of traditional dependence and developed capabilities that required independence and challenge to flourish. The betrayal that had shattered her assumptions about her secure future had also liberated her from constraints that had prevented full development of her professional and personal potential. The confrontation Anna had been meticulously planning occurred on a Thursday evening in late March, when Emma and Lucas were attending overnight activities that would keep them safely away from what Anna anticipated would be a difficult and potentially volatile conversation. She had spent 3 weeks documenting Robert's deception, consulting with attorneys, and preparing strategically for this moment that would formally begin the dissolution of her marriage and the construction of her independent future. Anna's preparation reflected the analytical and strategic thinking capabilities she had been developing through her work with Elena and her expanded volunteer responsibilities. She had organized her evidence systematically, researched Robert's likely legal and financial strategies, and prepared responses to arguments and manipulations he might attempt during their discussion. The project management skills she had applied to community initiatives were now being utilized to navigate the most challenging personal crisis of her adult life. Robert arrived home at his usual time, expecting the comfortable routine that had characterized their evenings for over a decade. Anna was waiting in the living room with a folder containing printed documentation of his infidelity, financial records she had copied, and a preliminary separation agreement her attorney had prepared. Her physical presentation was composed and professional, reflecting the confidence she had been building through months of recognizing and developing her capabilities. The conversation began with Anna's direct statement that she was aware of his relationship with Cassandra and that she had decided to pursue divorce proceedings immediately. Robert's initial response was predictable denial, followed by attempts to minimize the significance of what Anna had discovered. He characterized his affair as a temporary lapse in judgment that did not reflect his commitment to their marriage or family. Anna's response demonstrated the transformation in her self-perception and communication capabilities that had occurred during her period of awakening awareness. Rather than engaging in emotional arguments or accepting Robert's attempts to reframe the situation, she presented her evidence systematically and explained her decision-making process using the same analytical approach she had learned to apply to complex organizational challenges. She detailed the scope of deception she had uncovered, including financial expenditures that had been concealed from family budgets, time commitments that had been misrepresented as business obligations, and emotional investments that had been diverted from their marriage to another relationship. Anna's presentation was comprehensive and well documented, making denial or minimization impossible to sustain. More importantly, Anna articulated her decision to end their marriage not as an emotional reaction to betrayal, but as a strategic choice based on incompatible values and life directions. She explained that the systematic deception Robert had maintained demonstrated dishonesty that was fundamentally incompatible with the kind of partnership she required. Additionally, her own personal and professional development had created interests and ambitions that required independence and intellectual challenge that their traditional marriage structure could not accommodate. Robert's response to Anna's composed and strategic presentation revealed his own assumptions about her capabilities and potential for independence. He expressed disbelief that Anna would pursue divorce given her financial dependence and lack of professional experience. He suggested that she was overreacting to circumstances that could be resolved through counseling, and that her threats of legal action were unrealistic given her limited resources and understanding of complex financial matters. These assumptions reflected exactly the limitations that Anna had been systematically challenging through her work with Elena and her expanding volunteer responsibilities. Robert had not recognized the transformation in Anna's self-perception and capabilities, and he was unprepared for the strategic sophistication she demonstrated in handling their divorce negotiations. Anna's response to Robert's dismissive attitude marked a crucial moment in her personal and professional development. Rather than accepting his characterization of her limitations, she presented a detailed analysis of her financial rights, legal options, and strategic advantages that demonstrated sophisticated understanding of divorce proceedings and asset protection. Her research and preparation had been thorough and professional, enabling her to respond to his challenges with confidence and factual accuracy. The conversation continued for over 2 hours, during which Anna maintained strategic control while Robert alternated between attempts at reconciliation, intimidation, and negotiation. Anna's ability to remain focused on her objectives while managing complex emotional dynamics reflected the interpersonal and leadership skills she had been developing through her volunteer work and professional development activities. Most significantly, Anna presented Robert with evidence of her own developing professional capabilities and earning potential that challenged his assumptions about her financial dependence. She described the consulting opportunities she had been exploring, the professional credentials she had acquired, and the network of relationships she had built through her volunteer and educational activities. These developments represented concrete progress toward financial independence that made her divorce decision practical rather than merely aspirational. Robert's reaction to learning about Anna's professional development was revealing and ultimately confirming of her decision to end their marriage. Rather than expressing pride or support for her achievements, he seemed threatened by her growing independence and competence. His concerns focused on how her professional activities might interfere with family responsibilities, rather than on the personal fulfillment and financial security these opportunities could provide. This response demonstrated that Robert's vision of their marriage required Anna to remain in a subordinate and dependent role that was incompatible with the professional identity she was developing. Even without the betrayal that had precipitated their crisis, Anna recognized that their relationship had become structurally unsustainable, given her evolving sense of personal agency and ambition. The practical arrangements that emerged from Anna's confrontation with Robert were more favorable than she had initially expected, largely because her strategic preparation and professional presentation had established credibility that influenced his approach to negotiations. Her documentation of family assets, research into legal precedents, and consultation with experienced attorneys had prepared her to protect her interests effectively during what could have become a contentious process. Robert agreed to temporary financial arrangements that would enable Anna to maintain household stability while she developed her consulting practice and pursued additional professional credentials. He acknowledged that his deception had created circumstances that made reconciliation unrealistic, and agreed to cooperate with divorce proceedings that would be conducted through mediation rather than adversarial litigation. However, the most important outcome of Anna's confrontation with Robert was the validation of her own transformation and capabilities. The strategic thinking, analytical preparation, and professional communication she had demonstrated during their discussion proved to herself and to Robert that she possessed competencies that extended far beyond traditional domestic responsibilities. Anna's handling of this crisis marked her transition from someone who had been developing professional capabilities in theoretical contexts to someone who had successfully applied these skills to achieve concrete results under high-pressure circumstances. The confidence and competence she had been building through volunteer work and educational activities had been tested in the most challenging situation of her adult life and had proven sufficient for protecting her interests and achieving her objectives. The weeks following Anna's confrontation with Robert were characterized by intensive activity, as she implemented plans for establishing independent living arrangements and launching her consulting practice. The organizational and project management skills she had developed through volunteer work were immediately applicable to the complex logistics of relocating her family, establishing new financial systems, and creating business infrastructure. Anna's apartment search was conducted with the same systematic approach she had learned to apply to volunteer projects. She researched neighborhood demographics, school quality ratings, and transportation accessibility while evaluating rental options that would provide adequate space for her family within budget constraints that reflected her projected consulting income. The analytical and decision-making processes she employed were identical to those she had used for community development initiatives. The establishment of her consulting practice required Anna to translate her volunteer experience and professional development into marketable services that could generate sufficient income to support her family independently. Elena's guidance was crucial during this process, helping Anna identify consulting opportunities that aligned with her demonstrated competencies and providing frameworks for pricing her services appropriately. Anna's first consulting engagement emerged through her network of volunteer relationships, when the regional nonprofit coalition requested assistance with strategic planning and organizational development initiatives. The project required exactly the analytical and facilitation skills Anna had been developing through her community involvement, but in a professional context that would generate significant income while providing valuable experience for building her business. Her approach to this initial consulting engagement reflected the confidence and strategic thinking she had demonstrated during her divorce negotiations. Anna prepared extensively, developed comprehensive project plans, and implemented systematic approaches to stakeholder engagement and performance measurement that produced results exceeding her clients' expectations. The success of Anna's first professional consulting project validated Elena's assessment of her capabilities and provided concrete evidence that her volunteer experience and professional development had prepared her for generating significant income through independent practice. The client feedback was overwhelmingly positive, leading to referrals and additional project opportunities that established the foundation for sustainable business growth. More importantly, Anna's experience with professional consulting provided intellectual satisfaction and personal fulfillment that had been absent from her life during the comfortable years of her marriage. The complex problem-solving, strategic analysis, and organizational development work she was conducting engaged capabilities that had remained largely dormant during her period of domestic focus. Anna's success in launching her consulting practice while managing the practical and emotional challenges of divorce proceedings demonstrated remarkable resilience and competence that impressed everyone who observed her transformation. Friends and neighbors who had known Anna as a traditional housewife and volunteer coordinator were amazed by her professional achievements and business development capabilities. However, Anna understood that her initial success represented only the beginning of the transformation process she had undertaken. Establishing sustainable income through consulting required consistent marketing efforts, continuous professional development, and systematic business growth strategies that would test her capabilities in ways that volunteer work had not prepared her for completely. The financial pressures associated with supporting her family independently created urgency around business development that was both motivating and stressful. Anna needed to generate substantial income quickly while building long-term client relationships and professional reputation that would ensure ongoing security and growth opportunities. Elena continued to serve as mentor and strategic advisor during this period, helping Anna navigate challenges related to pricing strategies, client relationship management, and business development that required skills beyond those Anna had developed through volunteer and community involvement. The transition from volunteer leadership to professional consulting involved learning curves that were steep but manageable, given Anna's analytical capabilities and systematic approach to skill development. Anna's children adapted to their new circumstances with resilience that reflected the stability and security she had been able to maintain despite the dramatic changes in their family structure. Emma and Lucas were initially concerned about the divorce and relocation, but they responded positively to Anna's increased confidence and professional engagement. They took pride in their mother's business success and adapted well to the independent household she had established for them. The transformation Anna had achieved during the 6 months since discovering Robert's betrayal was remarkable by any objective measure. She had successfully navigated complex divorce proceedings, established independent living arrangements, launched a profitable consulting practice, and maintained stability for her children, while processing the emotional trauma of betrayal and the psychological adjustments required for unprecedented independence. However, Anna recognized that her current success represented early stages of a longer transformation process that would require continued growth and development to achieve the professional recognition and financial security she envisioned for her future. The capabilities she had discovered and developed had proven sufficient for initial success, but sustained achievement would require additional challenges and learning opportunities that would test her potential in ways she had not yet experienced. The success of Anna's initial consulting engagements created opportunities that exceeded her expectations, while simultaneously presenting challenges she had not anticipated during her strategic planning for independence. Within 6 months of launching her practice, Anna had completed 3 major projects for regional nonprofit organizations, each generating substantial revenue, while establishing her reputation as a strategic planning and organizational development specialist. However, this early success brought pressures and complexities that tested her capabilities in ways that volunteer work had never required. The first significant challenge emerged when Anna's growing reputation led to simultaneous requests from multiple potential clients, each offering projects that would require substantial time commitments and specialized expertise. The Massachusetts Healthcare Foundation approached her to conduct a comprehensive operational efficiency analysis across their 12 regional offices. Simultaneously, the Connecticut Arts Alliance requested her assistance with merger planning involving 3 separate organizations. A third opportunity involved developing leadership development programs for a statewide environmental advocacy network. Each project represented exactly the type of strategic consulting work Anna had envisioned when establishing her practice. The combined revenue potential would enable her to achieve financial security that exceeded what she had projected in her most optimistic business planning scenarios. However, accepting all 3 engagements would require working capabilities and time management sophistication that Anna had never been tested on previously. The decision-making process required Anna to evaluate not only the immediate financial benefits of these opportunities, but also their strategic implications for building her long-term professional reputation and capabilities. Elena's guidance proved crucial during this evaluation, helping Anna understand that sustainable consulting success required careful selection of projects that would enhance her expertise while avoiding overcommitment that could compromise the quality of her work or her ability to maintain family responsibilities. Anna's analysis of these opportunities reflected the strategic thinking capabilities that had developed significantly since her initial volunteer work. She evaluated each project according to criteria, including alignment with her core competencies, potential for skill development, client relationship benefits, and timeline compatibility with her existing commitments and family obligations. This systematic approach enabled her to select the projects that would provide optimal learning opportunities while maintaining service quality standards. However, the complexity of managing multiple concurrent consulting engagements revealed gaps in Anna's business development experience that required immediate attention. Client relationship management across different organizational cultures and stakeholder groups required interpersonal and communication skills that extended beyond her volunteer coordination experience. Project scheduling, resource allocation, and performance tracking for multiple simultaneous engagements demanded organizational capabilities that tested the limits of her current systems and processes. Anna's response to these challenges demonstrated the resilience and learning agility that had characterized her transformation throughout the previous year. Emma and Lucas were initially concerned about the divorce and relocation, but they responded positively to Anna's increased confidence and professional engagement. They took pride in their mother's business success and adapted well to the independent household she had established for them. The transformation Anna had achieved during the 6 months since discovering Robert's betrayal was remarkable by any objective measure. She had successfully navigated complex divorce proceedings, established independent living arrangements, launched a profitable consulting practice, and maintained stability for her children, while processing the emotional trauma of betrayal and the psychological adjustments required for unprecedented independence. However, Anna recognized that her current success represented early stages of a longer transformation process that would require continued growth and development to achieve the professional recognition and financial security she envisioned for her future. The capabilities she had discovered and developed had proven sufficient for initial success, but sustained achievement would require additional challenges and learning opportunities that would test her potential in ways she had not yet experienced. The success of Anna's initial consulting engagements created opportunities that exceeded her expectations, while simultaneously presenting challenges she had not anticipated during her strategic planning for independence. Within 6 months of launching her practice, Anna had completed 3 major projects for regional nonprofit organizations, each generating substantial revenue while establishing her reputation as a strategic planning and organizational development specialist. However, this early success brought pressures and complexities that tested her capabilities in ways that volunteer work had never required. The first significant challenge emerged when Anna's growing reputation led to simultaneous requests from multiple potential clients, each offering projects that would require substantial time commitments and specialized expertise. The Massachusetts Healthcare Foundation approached her to conduct a comprehensive operational efficiency analysis across their 12 regional offices. Simultaneously, the Connecticut Arts Alliance requested her assistance with merger planning involving 3 separate organizations. A third opportunity involved developing leadership development programs for a statewide environmental advocacy network. Each project represented exactly the type of strategic consulting work Anna had envisioned when establishing her practice. The combined revenue potential would enable her to achieve financial security that exceeded what she had projected in her most optimistic business planning scenarios. However, accepting all 3 engagements would require working capabilities and time management sophistication that Anna had never been tested on previously. The decision-making process required Anna to evaluate not only the immediate financial benefits of these opportunities, but also their strategic implications for building her long-term professional reputation and capabilities. Elena's guidance proved crucial during this evaluation, helping Anna understand that sustainable consulting success required careful selection of projects that would enhance her expertise while avoiding overcommitment that could compromise the quality of her work or her ability to maintain family responsibilities. Anna's analysis of these opportunities reflected the strategic thinking capabilities that had developed significantly since her initial volunteer work. She evaluated each project according to criteria including alignment with her core competencies, potential for skill development, client relationship benefits, and timeline compatibility with her existing commitments and family obligations. This systematic approach enabled her to select the projects that would provide optimal learning opportunities while maintaining service quality standards. However, the complexity of managing multiple concurrent consulting engagements revealed gaps in Anna's business development experience that required immediate attention. Client relationship management across different organizational cultures and stakeholder groups required interpersonal and communication skills that extended beyond her volunteer coordination experience. Project scheduling, resource allocation, and performance tracking for multiple simultaneous engagements demanded organizational capabilities that tested the limits of her current systems and processes. Anna's response to these challenges demonstrated the resilience and learning agility that had characterized her transformation throughout the previous year. Rather than becoming overwhelmed by the complexity of her expanding responsibilities, she approached these challenges systematically, identifying specific areas where she needed additional expertise and developing strategies for acquiring necessary capabilities quickly and effectively. Professional development became a higher priority as Anna recognized that sustained success would require continuous learning and skill enhancement. She enrolled in advanced project management courses designed specifically for independent consultants, attended workshops on client relationship management and business development, and began working with a business coach who specialized in helping women entrepreneurs scale their practices effectively. The financial investment required for these professional development activities created budget pressures that Anna had not anticipated when establishing her practice. Quality training programs and professional coaching services represented significant expenses that reduced her immediate income while potentially enhancing her long-term earning capacity. The decision-making required to balance current financial needs with future capability development reflected the type of strategic thinking that characterized successful business leaders. Anna's management of family responsibilities while pursuing demanding professional development created additional complexity that tested her organizational and time management capabilities. Emma and Lucas required attention and support that could not be compromised, despite Anna's increasing professional obligations. Their academic performance, social development, and emotional adjustment to their parents' divorce remained priority concerns that required consistent availability and engagement. The integration of professional success with single parenthood required Anna to develop systems and strategies that had not been necessary during her traditional marriage, when household responsibilities were shared and her schedule was more flexible. Evening client calls conflicted with homework supervision and bedtime routines. Travel requirements for consulting engagements created childcare needs that were expensive and logistically complicated to arrange. Anna's solution to these challenges reflected the innovative problem-solving approach that had characterized her most successful volunteer projects. She developed collaborative arrangements with other working mothers in her neighborhood, creating informal childcare networks that provided mutual support during professional travel and evening work requirements. She established home office systems that enabled her to maintain productivity while remaining available for family interactions and supervision. Most importantly, Anna involved Emma and Lucas in understanding and supporting her professional development in age-appropriate ways that helped them feel included in her transformation rather than displaced by it. She explained her consulting work in terms they could understand, celebrated her business achievements as family successes, and demonstrated how her professional growth was creating opportunities and security that would benefit their entire household. The expansion of Anna's consulting practice required business development activities that challenged her comfort zone and previous experience significantly. Marketing her services effectively required understanding of business communication strategies, networking approaches, and professional presentation techniques that extended far beyond her volunteer coordination background. She needed to develop compelling descriptions of her value proposition, create professional marketing materials, and establish online presence that would attract potential clients. Anna's approach to business development reflected the systematic learning strategies she had applied to previous challenges. She researched successful consulting practices, studied marketing approaches used by professionals with similar service offerings, and sought mentorship from established consultants who were willing to share practical guidance about client acquisition and relationship management. The networking requirements of successful consulting practice pushed Anna into professional environments where she had never operated previously. Industry conferences, professional association meetings, and business development events required social skills and professional presence that Anna had to develop through practice and observation. Her volunteer experience had provided excellent preparation for relationship building and stakeholder management, but the competitive dynamics of business networking presented different challenges that required adapted approaches. Anna's initial discomfort with professional networking reflected both her lack of experience in business environments and deeper psychological barriers related to self-promotion and competitive positioning. The volunteer sector had emphasized collaboration and mutual support, while business networking required Anna to articulate her unique value proposition and compete effectively for client attention and contracts. Elena's coaching during this period focused on helping Anna understand that effective business development required confidence in her own capabilities and willingness to communicate her achievements and expertise assertively. The analytical and strategic thinking skills that Anna had demonstrated consistently were valuable professional competencies that deserved recognition and appropriate compensation. Learning to present these capabilities effectively was essential for sustainable consulting success. The financial management requirements of independent consulting practice created additional learning challenges that tested Anna's capabilities in areas where she had limited previous experience. Cash flow management, expense tracking, tax planning, and retirement savings required systematic approaches to financial planning that extended beyond household budget management. The irregular income patterns characteristic of consulting work demanded financial discipline and strategic planning that Anna had to develop quickly. Anna's relationship with financial risk and security underwent significant transformation during this period. The comfortable predictability of Robert's steady income had been replaced by the variable but potentially higher earnings of successful consulting practice. This transition required psychological adjustment to uncertainty, while developing confidence in her ability to generate sufficient income through her own professional efforts. The business insurance, professional liability coverage, and legal protections required for consulting practice represented additional areas where Anna needed to develop expertise quickly. Understanding contract terms, negotiating project agreements, and protecting her interests during client relationships required knowledge of business law and professional practices that she acquired through research, professional development, and consultation with specialists. Anna's growing expertise in organizational development and strategic planning attracted attention from clients with increasingly complex challenges that stretched her capabilities in rewarding but demanding ways. A request to facilitate merger negotiations between two competing nonprofit organizations required conflict resolution and diplomatic skills that built upon her volunteer experience, while demanding higher levels of sophistication and professional judgment. The intellectual challenges presented by advanced consulting engagements provided exactly the type of stimulation and growth opportunities that Anna had been seeking throughout her transformation. Complex organizational problems required analytical thinking, creative solution development, and strategic planning capabilities that engaged her mental resources fully while producing meaningful impact for client organizations. However, the pressure of delivering sophisticated consulting services while managing business development, financial planning, and family responsibilities created stress levels that tested Anna's resilience and work-life integration strategies. The freedom and flexibility of independent practice came with complete responsibility for business success and family security that could be overwhelming during difficult periods. Anna's support network became increasingly important as her professional responsibilities expanded and intensified. Elena continued to provide strategic guidance and emotional support, but Anna also developed relationships with other independent consultants who understood the unique challenges of building professional practices while managing family obligations. These peer relationships provided practical advice, emotional validation, and collaborative opportunities that enhanced both her business development and personal resilience. The recognition Anna received for her consulting achievements began extending beyond her immediate professional network, as her reputation for organizational effectiveness and strategic insight attracted attention from larger organizations and higher-profile clients. An invitation to present at a regional conference on nonprofit management represented validation of her expertise while creating opportunities for expanded professional visibility and business development. Anna's conference presentation required public speaking and professional presentation skills that challenged her comfort zone while building confidence in her ability to communicate effectively with sophisticated professional audiences. The positive response to her presentation, including requests for additional speaking engagements and consulting opportunities, demonstrated that her transformation from suburban housewife to recognized professional consultant was achieving external validation that matched her internal sense of growth and capability. The success Anna had achieved during her first year of independent consulting practice exceeded her initial expectations while revealing the scope of additional growth that would be necessary for sustained professional excellence. The challenges she had navigated successfully had prepared her for opportunities that would test her capabilities at even higher levels, while requiring continued learning and development that would shape the next phase of her transformation journey. The crisis that nearly derailed Anna's transformation arrived 18 months after she had established her consulting practice, during what appeared to be a period of sustained professional success and growing recognition. 3 simultaneous setbacks converged to create circumstances that challenged every assumption Anna had developed about her capabilities, her professional prospects, and the wisdom of the independent path she had chosen following her divorce from Robert. The first devastating blow came when the Massachusetts Healthcare Foundation terminated their contract with Anna midway through the operational efficiency analysis that represented her largest and most prestigious engagement to date. The termination occurred following a change in executive leadership that brought new priorities and different approaches to organizational development. The incoming chief executive officer expressed preference for working with larger consulting firms that possessed extensive healthcare industry credentials and established track records with similar institutions. The contract termination was handled professionally and included financial compensation for work completed, but the impact on Anna's confidence and business prospects extended far beyond the immediate revenue loss. The Healthcare Foundation project had been positioned as a cornerstone client relationship that would establish her credibility within the healthcare consulting sector and provide referrals to other major institutional clients. The sudden termination left Anna questioning whether her volunteer sector background and nonprofit experience provided sufficient foundation for competing effectively with established consulting firms in lucrative markets. The second major setback involved a project for the Connecticut Arts Alliance that encountered unexpected complications when merger negotiations between the three participating organizations became contentious and politically charged. Anna's role as strategic planning facilitator placed her at the center of disagreements involving competing interests, personality conflicts, and fundamental philosophical differences about organizational mission and governance structure. Despite her diplomatic skills and systematic approach to conflict resolution, the merger discussions collapsed amid accusations and mutual recriminations that made continuation of the strategic planning process impossible. The failure of the Arts Alliance merger project was particularly devastating because Anna had invested substantial time and effort in developing innovative solutions to complex organizational challenges. Her strategic analysis had identified genuine opportunities for operational synergies and enhanced mission impact that could have benefited all three organizations significantly. However, the political dynamics and interpersonal conflicts proved insurmountable despite the quality of her analytical work and facilitation efforts. The Arts Alliance experience forced Anna to confront limitations in her consulting capabilities that extended beyond technical expertise to encompass the messy realities of organizational politics and human psychology that could undermine even the most sophisticated strategic planning. The systematic approaches and collaborative frameworks that had proven effective in volunteer sector work were insufficient for managing the competitive dynamics and ego conflicts that characterized some professional organizational environments. The third component of Anna's crisis emerged from accumulated stress and exhaustion that had been building gradually throughout her intensive period of business development and professional growth. The demands of managing multiple consulting engagements while maintaining quality family relationships and pursuing continuous professional development had created unsustainable work patterns that were beginning to affect her health, emotional stability, and overall life satisfaction. Anna found herself working 12-hour days regularly, taking client calls during family dinner times, and spending weekends preparing proposals and project materials rather than engaging in recreational activities or personal relationships. The flexibility and autonomy of independent consulting practice had become a trap of constant availability and perpetual pressure to generate new business opportunities while delivering excellence on existing commitments. The physical symptoms of chronic stress began manifesting through sleep disturbances, tension headaches, and digestive problems that Anna initially dismissed as temporary adjustments to her demanding schedule. However, these symptoms persisted and intensified during the period when her major client relationships were experiencing difficulties, creating a cycle of stress that affected both her professional performance and personal well-being. The convergence of client setbacks with accumulated exhaustion created a psychological crisis that challenged Anna's fundamental assumptions about her transformation journey and professional prospects. For the first time since discovering Robert's betrayal, Anna questioned whether the independence and achievement she had been pursuing were worth the sacrifices and uncertainties they required. The comfortable security of traditional marriage began to seem appealing, compared to the constant pressure and unpredictable outcomes of independent consulting practice. Anna's crisis of confidence was intensified by financial pressures that emerged when major client losses reduced her income significantly, while fixed expenses for office space, professional development, and business operations continued unchanged. The irregular cash flow patterns of consulting work, which had seemed manageable during periods of steady client engagement, became problematic when multiple revenue sources disappeared simultaneously without immediate replacement opportunities. The need to maintain household stability for Emma and Lucas while managing business uncertainty created additional stress that affected every aspect of Anna's decision-making and daily functioning. Her children had adapted well to their new circumstances and were thriving academically and socially, but Anna worried constantly about her ability to provide the financial security and emotional stability they deserved, while pursuing the demanding and unpredictable path of independent consulting. During this period of crisis, Anna experienced persistent thoughts about returning to more traditional employment that would provide predictable income and defined responsibilities without the constant pressure of business development and client management. Several nonprofit organizations in her area had executive positions available that would utilize her organizational development expertise while offering benefits and job security that independent practice could not provide. The possibility of accepting traditional employment created internal conflict between Anna's developing professional identity and practical concerns about financial stability and work-life balance. Independent consulting had provided intellectual challenge and professional recognition that exceeded her expectations, but it had also created pressures and uncertainties that were difficult to sustain over extended periods without significant personal costs. Anna's relationship with Elena became crucial during this crisis period, as she struggled to maintain perspective and confidence while processing the setbacks and challenges that were testing her commitment to independent practice. Elena's guidance helped Anna understand that the difficulties she was experiencing were normal aspects of entrepreneurial development, rather than evidence of fundamental inadequacy or poor decision-making. Elena encouraged Anna to view her current challenges as learning opportunities that would strengthen her consulting capabilities and business development skills, rather than as failures that invalidated her professional transformation. The client difficulties Anna had encountered were typical experiences for independent consultants and provided valuable insights about project selection, contract negotiation, and client relationship management that would enhance her future success. Most importantly, Elena helped Anna recognize that her crisis of confidence was rooted in unrealistic expectations about professional development rather than genuine inadequacy of her capabilities or poor strategic choices about her career direction. The transition from volunteer leadership to professional consulting required time, experience, and inevitable setbacks that were necessary components of skill development rather than indicators of unsuitability for independent practice. Elena's support during Anna's crisis included practical assistance with business strategy refinement and client development approaches that could address the immediate challenges while building foundation for sustainable long-term success. Together, they analyzed Anna's consulting experiences to identify patterns and lessons that could inform improved approaches to project selection, client screening, and service delivery that would reduce future risks while enhancing professional satisfaction. The process of systematic analysis and strategic planning during Anna's crisis period reinforced her analytical capabilities and problem-solving skills, while providing renewed confidence in her ability to navigate complex challenges effectively. The same intellectual tools that had enabled her successful volunteer leadership and initial consulting success were applicable to overcoming the setbacks and obstacles that characterize any significant professional transformation. Anna's family relationships provided essential support during her crisis period as Emma and Lucas demonstrated understanding and encouragement that validated her decision to pursue independent professional development despite temporary difficulties. Their pride in her achievements and confidence in her capabilities helped counterbalance the self-doubt and uncertainty that had emerged from recent client setbacks and financial pressures. The conversations Anna had with her children about her professional challenges provided opportunities to model resilience, strategic thinking, and persistence in pursuing meaningful goals despite obstacles and setbacks. Emma and Lucas observed their mother analyzing problems systematically, seeking appropriate guidance and support, and developing strategies for overcoming difficulties rather than abandoning commitments when circumstances became challenging. Anna's crisis period also strengthened her relationships with other independent consultants and women entrepreneurs who shared similar experiences and could provide practical guidance based on their own transformational journeys. These peer relationships offered validation that the challenges Anna was facing were normal aspects of building independent practices rather than unique problems that indicated personal inadequacy or poor career choices. The professional network Anna had been developing provided both emotional support and practical assistance during her difficult period. Referrals from other consultants helped replace some of the revenue lost from terminated contracts, while collaborative opportunities enabled Anna to participate in larger projects that utilized her expertise, while reducing the business development pressures of independent client acquisition. Anna's systematic approach to addressing her crisis reflected the strategic thinking capabilities that had characterized her most successful volunteer and consulting work. Rather than making emotional decisions based on immediate pressures, she developed comprehensive analysis of her professional situation that included objective assessment of her capabilities, realistic evaluation of market opportunities, and strategic planning for sustainable business development that could provide both financial security and personal fulfillment. The financial planning Anna conducted during her crisis period revealed that her consulting practice had generated substantial income during its first 18 months, despite recent setbacks. Her business had created financial reserves that provided cushion for managing temporary revenue reductions while pursuing new client opportunities. The economic foundation of her independence was more solid than immediate pressures had suggested. More importantly, Anna's crisis analysis demonstrated that her professional capabilities had developed significantly beyond her initial volunteer sector background. The strategic planning, organizational development, and project management expertise she had acquired through consulting experience qualified her for executive positions and collaborative opportunities that had not existed when she first considered pursuing independence following her divorce. The recognition of her expanded capabilities and improved professional prospects helped Anna understand that her current difficulties represented temporary obstacles rather than permanent limitations. The setbacks she had experienced provided valuable learning that would enhance her consulting effectiveness, while the network relationships and professional reputation she had built created foundation for sustained success despite current challenges. Anna's decision to continue pursuing independent consulting practice rather than accepting traditional employment reflected renewed confidence in her transformation journey and commitment to achieving the professional recognition and personal fulfillment that had motivated her initial departure from conventional domestic roles. The crisis that had challenged her resolve ultimately strengthened her determination to succeed as an independent professional, while providing practical experience that would serve her well during future challenges and opportunities. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.